want to see the face of a guy that habitually lies for nearly 20 years on a specific job that is kind of important and somewhat crucial in terms of the foreign policy realm aspects when it comes to a country in terms of having cordial or steady relations with other countries? Well, just watch this. The video I'm about to show you is another UN General Assembly video pertaining to the Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov and his fiery speech or rhetoric that he did whilst conveying it in front of the General Assembly of the United Nations during this past UN General Assembly week. So I'm going to show you tidbit of the clip, but nevertheless, here we go, and ready, set, and go.
The floor to His Excellency Sergey Lavrov, Minister for the Federation.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, 80 years ago, the most terrible war in human history came to an end. More than 70 million people fell victim to the fighting, famine, and disease. In 1945, the course of world history changed forever. The triumph over German Nazism, under whose banner most of Europe had rallied, and Japanese militarism paved the way for peace, recovery, and prosperity. This year, Moscow and Beijing held celebrations devoted to the 9th of May and 3rd of September holidays to mark the victory in the Great Patriotic War and World War II. The world witnessed grand military parades commemorating the decisive contribution of the peoples of the Soviet Union to the defeat of Nazi Germany and the particular role of the people of China in defeating militaristic Japan. We sacredly honor the memory of our brotherhood in arms with all of our allies who stood on the side of truth in the fight against the forces of evil. One of the enduring outcomes of that war was the creation of the United Nations. The principles of its charter agreed upon by the founding fathers of our organization continue to serve as a shining beacon of international cooperation. They embody centuries of experience of the coexistence of states and remain fully relevant in the age of multipolarity. The only thing that remains is for all member states, without exception, to adhere to those principles in full, in their entirety, and as they are interconnected. In practice, however, things look different. Widespread, gross violations of the principle of the sovereign equality of states.
Okay, now I'm back. Overall, his speech kind of pertains to how the U.S. world order is essentially collapsing. And to be fair, he does kind of have a point though, and it doesn't really pertain as of this moment in the last several years, but so far it goes back for almost 2 decades at this point, since the aftermath of 9/11 and subsequent invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, in which the U.S. kind of became more fixated as well, permeated more of the war on terror and therefore wreaking havoc across the planet in terms of combating terrorism. But I digress with that. But with regards to him in an overall speech, basically he's trying to antiquate or trying to make it more equivalent in some way that Russia, China, North Korea are the fairly good actors in the world, even though they themselves, specifically all of them, in their history and concurrently now what's going on in Ukraine, yeah, they're not so grand and well either. But to make this last point of it, right, we are beginning to see a multipolar world, and it's happening, and whether people want to admit it or not. And it's partly due to because of BRICS and the cooperation between China and Russia, and especially now North Korea and even Iran. It's really getting intense in terms of geopolitics in that capacity. Specifically, is things are really heating up for the first time since the end of the Cold War, and I thought I would never get to see that, really. But is this going to lead more problems in the future? Well, more or less so. It really depends. But judging by the outcome of the way how the Ukraine war is going at the moment, it's only a matter of time. That's all I gotta say for that. But yeah, he's an asshole, and he's a habitual liar.